Hello everyone, we ended part 3 at verse number 14 of chapter 42 in the book of Isaiah, and I mentioned that this is actually a very critical and important verse that you have to know. Why? It says, for a long time I have kept silent, I have been quiet and held myself back. So basically the verse is prophesying that our Lord YHWH, or Allah, our God, our Creator, is going to keep silent. It's going to be quiet and purposefully hold himself back for a long time. What that means is that we're going to have this extended, lengthy period of absolutely no divine intervention in world affair, as we can see right now. Literally for the past 1400 years we have not had any sort of divine intervention that we can point to. Of course, it doesn't mean that things are not happening behind the scenes, but as far as we know, as far as we can see with our own eyes and comprehend and understand, and as far as the majority of the world can testify and witness and verify, there is nothing in terms of divine intervention. In fact, if you think about it, it even feels like as if God is absent. So all these wars have happened, millions of people have died. Of course, I don't know when our God, our Creator, is going to break his silence. However, what I do know is that we are absolutely in the end time right now. Verse number 15, I will lay waste mountains and hills and dry up all their vegetation. Again, mountains and hills in the context of this verse are big, powerful nations of the world that resemble huge mountains, and the vegetations on them is actually the people, the population. So I told you that there's going to be a huge war, and the entire world, all the armies of the world, all the United Nations will gather together to destroy and annihilate the community of the true believers at the end time. These are the people from all around the world that will actually follow the promised messenger of the covenant. They will believe in the messages that our Lord will send down to us through his promised messenger. And at this point, it is at this point that the Messiah will descend, the Christ, the Messiah will descend. That will be the second coming of the Messiah, and the armies of the Lord will destroy the armies of the nation. And this is what this verse is talking about. So I will lay waste the mountains and hills and dry up all their vegetation. I will turn rivers into islands and dry up the pools. I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. So by the blind is talking about majority of humanity that right now really they don't know. The eyes, they do have physical eyes, they do have physical ears, but they have never known the truth. They have never known the reality of our God, our Creator, of YHWH, of Allah, and they have never heard those stories. So basically their eyes will open and their ears will their eyes and their ears will open, and they see and they hear the truth and the reality of Allah's true religion. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. I will not forsake them. Again, you see that this is the path of our God, the paths of our Lord are very unfamiliar. They really don't exist in our day and age. And Allah is going to reveal those paths and guide those who believe along those paths that are unfamiliar right now. But those who trust in idols, who say to images, you are our gods, will be turned back in utter shame. So this is an important verse. people are worshiping. Idolatry has never stopped. Even as of today, people are worshiping idols. It doesn't mean that there's a statue, but of course they do that as well. Again, just to give you an example, in Islam, as of today, Muslims are unknowingly worshiping Akbar. And also they go to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and of course they worship the black stone over there and so many other stones over there. So idolatry is hidden. In Christianity, of course, people worship Jesus, son of Maryam, Jesus Christ, son of Maryam, the Messiah. They worship Mary, they worship saints. And so idolatry is still there. It's just very well hidden, but it's happening day in and day out. The next verse, it says, "Hear you deaf, look you blind and see." So this is talking to all people, all mankind who still don't know the reality, who still don't know the truth, and their eyes have not opened up and their ears have not opened up yet. Then next verse says, "Who is blind but my servant, and deaf like the messenger I send?" Who is blind like the one who has submitted, blind like the servant of the Lord. So the interpretation of this verse is that the servant of the Lord in the early parts of his life is actually going to be blind and deaf, not physically blind and deaf. It means that he's not going to be following the true religions, and he actually probably will make some severe mistakes. In the early parts of his life, he will be on the wrong path. He will not be following the true religion, and he will make mistakes. He has committed sins, so he's not a perfect person like Jesus Christ, son of Maryam. He's not like that. He's a normal human being who used to be following the wrong religion, whatever that religion was, and at some point in his life, our Lord, our Creator, will guide him to the right path, and he's rightly guided at that point. Basically, Allah is telling people, I know you are deaf, I know you are blind, but don't get discouraged, don't get disappointed, don't think you can do it. Look, my messenger, my servant, my messenger of the covenant, my servant that I'm sending also used to be blind, also used to be deaf, but look, he was guided so much that I chose him as my promised messenger of the covenant, and I sent him to mankind. So if he can do it, then you all can do it. You have absolutely no excuses. So what I want you to know, that in the messenger of the covenant, don't be looking for a perfect man. In fact, I made another video. If you look at part 1, I told you that his entire life is going to be analyzed, text messages, phone calls, everything, and he's going to be accused of being a crazy person, a madman. They're going to bring clinicians, they're going to be interviews, they're going to be experts talking about him, and they're going to reveal his entire life, everything he has done. So, and they're going to demonstrate that this person is not a good person and is not worthy. But we already know that Allah already tells us, YHWH is already telling us the exact same thing by saying that who is blind, that my messenger actually used to be even more blind and more deaf compared to the rest of people. And then the second part of the verse, it says, who is blind like the one who has submitted. This word in Hebrew is written this way, Kim Solam, but it's actually very similar to the Arabic word. Actually, the exact same word is Kam Muslim. In Arabic, we say Kam Muslim. So in Hebrew, it says Kim Salam. So basically, what it means is that like the one who has submitted. So who is blind? Like the one who has submitted. Blind like the servant of the Lord. Then it says, you have seen many things but have paid no attention. Your ears are open, the physical ears are open, but you hear nothing, you're deaf. So here Allah is telling us in this verse that when he's talking about blind and when he's talking about deaf, in the verses above, he's talking about the spiritual sense of being blind and being deaf, not the physical sense of it. Then it says, it pleased the Lord for the sake of his righteousness to make his law great and glorious. But this is a people plundered and looted, all of them trapped in pits or hidden away in prisons. They have become plunder with no one to rescue them. They have been made loot with no one to say, send them back. So this verse is describing the condition of the community of the true believers in end times, the group that they come from, the majority of them. So what is happening is that the nations will plunder them, and they will be trapped in prisons, and they will not have equal rights to the rest of the world. Let me give you a precursor. A precursor of it is actually right now in our day and age. Again, a precursor of it is currently the situation that Palestinians are suffering over there. You see, they are being killed day and night, and no one cares. They are imprisoned, put on administrative process. For years they are in prisons without having any access to judicial process, fair process, to justice. They are being killed day and night. Their children are being killed. Their women are being killed. Their men are being killed. And it's just no one in the world cares. There's no justice for them. So the current Palestinians are actually a precursor to the events at the end times. And if you have that picture in your mind and you read this, you're going to understand this. They have become plunder with no one to rescue them. And you can see that there's no one that can rescue them. They're just being massacred day in and day out, and no one even cares. They have been made loot with no one to say, send them back. They take them, they imprison them, and there's no one in the world, no international entity that can go and say, hey, these people you have put in prison, send them, release them. Which of you will listen to this or pay close attention in time to come? Who handed Jacob over to become loot and Israel to plunderers? Was it not the Lord, against whom we have sinned? For they would not follow his way. They did not obey his law. So he poured out on them his burning anger, the violence of war. It enveloped them in flames, yet they did not understand. It consumed them, but they did not take it to heart. So this is the last verse of this chapter of book of Isaiah. It talks about Jacob and Israel. So if you don't understand these two references, you always think that that all these prophecies are relevant to the state of Israel. So this is the map of the Holy Land. Remember, at the time when prophet Isaiah is making these prophecies, there is no religion of Christianity. There is no religion of Islam. The only religion that existed back then, the only monotheistic religion that existed back then, was what we call today Judaism, the religion of the Torah. And all the true believers, those who believed in our Creator, in Yahweh, in Allah, in our God, they were concentrated all in this area, in the Holy Land. So in what was back then known as Israel or Jacob. So at this time, when Isaiah is prophesying, and in fact many other also prophets in the Torah, in the Bible, when you read them, they are prophesying, the only community of the true believers is what is known today as the state of Israel and Jordan area. So that's where all the true believers had been concentrated in. It was not like today when you have believers in across the world, in America, in England, in Europe, in Asia, everywhere. It was very different back then. So when the reference of Israel, the reference of Jacob, is basically referring to the community of the true believers. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Our Creator, our God, is nobody's uncle, aunt, and He is not racist, Semite, or anti-Semite. Our Creator, our God, has created every individual, every human being in this world, and he loves them equally and he treats them equally. However, in the prophecy, in the book of prophet, for those prophets, whenever they were referring to an organized community of the true believers, they would refer to Israel, to Jacob, because that was the only community of the true believers that existed back then, and the rest of the nations were idolaters, were worshiping other gods, were in the wrong path, they were doing all kinds of corruption. God willing, I will make another video and explain that from various verses in the Bible and also from Dead Sea Scrolls, but for the time being I want you to keep that in mind. And this verse is a reference actually to the Muslim world, because the Muslim world are the only group of people who have believed in all the prophets in the Torah. But in addition to that, they also believed in Jesus Christ, the Son of Maryam, the true Messiah. And they also believed in the last prophet who is promised in Deuteronomy chapter 18, the prophet that was supposed to come from Edom, from the Edomite, from Petra, Jordan, which used to be known as Kadesh or Mecca. So the Muslim world is the only group of believers that believe in all these prophets, in that line of prophethood. However, after Prophet Muhammad, they disbelieved and they changed Mecca to what is known today in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. And they really follow their own religion. They have created their own religion of hadith and hearsay and he said and she said. And if you look at their book of hadith, they have created these disgusting sayings about and accusations about prophet and the things that they say that I don't want to go into it. But because of that, our Creator has subjected them to his wrath. And you can see, that's why he said, who handed Jacob over to become loot and Israel to plunderers? Was it not the Lord against whom we have sinned? Why? Because they would not follow his ways. They do not follow his ways. They do not follow the Quran at all. So because of that, our Creator poured out on them his burning anger and the violence of war. So you can, and it enveloped them in flames, yet they did not understand. It consumed them, but they did not take it to heart. And as you can see, they are enveloped in wars, in civil wars, and everywhere you look at in the Islamic world, there is some sort of a war. There used to be some sort of a war, and thousands, sometimes millions of people die because of these flames of war that are enveloping them in that region. You can look at what happened in Iraq, you can look at what happened in Syria, you can look at what happened in Yemen, you can look at what's happening in Palestine, you can look at Israel, you can look at what happened in Iran and Iraq. Millions of people, Sudan, Indonesia, everywhere you look, it's just people are dying right and left. Libya, Afghanistan, it's literally, it is, unfortunately, it is what it is. It is only going to get worse up until Allah's promised messenger of the covenant comes, and only if the people of the region believe in him and follow him. Peace and blessings to all of you.